Well, hello. Thanks for joining us today. Here's the thing. I know that you could be other places than church today, and the fact that you would take an hour or so out of your day to come to church is really, really meaningful to us. So thank you for doing that. Now, if you're newer to Saddleback, maybe you're brand new, or maybe you haven't been here in a couple weeks, I do need to catch you up on a little bit of family news. A couple weekends ago, Pastor Andy showed us his brand new tattoo. If you were here, you saw that. If not, here's a picture of it. He showed us that tattoo. Now, when I saw that, I was sitting in my seat and I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, man, that is like 8 levels of awesome. It's just so big, and the cross and the lion, and I walked away thinking, I want a tattoo. I want to be that guy. And so I asked my wife, hey, Rachel, would it be okay if I got a tattoo? And she said, sure, you can get a tattoo. And so I did, and I thought I'd reveal it to you tonight, so you might want to take a close look. Here's my tattoo. Just thought you'd like that one. I'm either gonna get fired or promoted because I did that joke. I don't know which one. I recently heard a story about a dad and his teenage son who were having a moment of conflict. Now, that's nothing new, right? I mean, ever since there have been dads and teenage sons, there have been moments of conflict. It just goes with the territory. But in this particular case, the boy was about to turn 16, and he and his dad had been talking for a few weeks about, hey, when you turn 16, maybe we'll be able to give you a car for your birthday. And the son was looking forward to that, and at one point the dad said, but here's the deal. In order for us to give you a car for your 16th birthday, Mom and I, we're gonna need you to cut your hair. Because his hair was long and straggly, and the son just didn't jive with that. He didn't understand. They would kind of go back and forth. Dad, I don't understand what my hair has to do with me being responsible and you being able to trust me, and why would you be less generous just because I have long hair? And they would kind of go back and forth, and the son was really frustrated because the dad was holding firm, saying, look, until you cut your hair, we're not gonna get you a car. And so the son one afternoon was just thinking and just grinding away, going, what do I say? What's the argument? And then he had the moment. Aha, I got it. And he went to his dad and said, Dad, I've been thinking, there's no reason why my long hair should keep me from having a car. And his dad said, well, why is that? And the son said, well, Jesus had long hair. And his dad paused and he said, you're right. And he walked everywhere he went. Now, if you've ever spent any time reading the Bible, especially if you've ever spent any time investigating or studying the Gospels, taking a close look at the life of Jesus, what you realize is, one, he in fact walked everywhere he went. He spent a lot of time walking. He spent most of his ministry walking from town to town, place to place, home to home. Jesus did a lot of walking. And the other thing you'll quickly notice when you look at the life of Jesus is that as Jesus walked, he walked with great intentionality. I mean, Jesus walked with great intentionality. And when you read about the life of Jesus, you'll notice that time after time after time after time again, people would cross paths with Jesus. Somebody would show up in Jesus' path, and their life would never be the same. Like, Jesus never wasted an interaction. Jesus never wasted a conversation. Time after time, he would encounter people, and time after time, lives were changed as a result. There's a summary of this in the book of Matthew in chapter 4, verses 23 to 25. This is sort of like a summary. It kind of summarizes the way Jesus approached his life. It says this: Jesus traveled throughout the region of Galilee, teaching in the synagogues and announcing the good news about the kingdom. And he healed every kind of disease and illness. News about him spread as far as Syria, and people soon began bringing to him all who were sick. And whatever their sickness or their disease, or if they were demon-possessed or epileptic or paralyzed, he healed them all. Large crowds followed him everywhere he went. People from Galilee, the 10 towns, Jerusalem, from all over Judea, and from east of the Jordan River. It's kind of a snapshot, a summary of the life of Jesus. In the book of John, it's the last of the 4 Gospels. If you read all the way to the very end, the very last verse in the Gospel of John is really interesting. It says this. So this is after this account, these summaries of the life of Jesus. John ends his gospel by saying this. Jesus also did many other things. If they were all written down, I suppose the whole world could not contain the books that would be written. So think about how many interactions, how many conversations, how many encounters must Jesus have had in order for John to say, if it was all recorded, there aren't enough books in the world to write it all down. You see, as Jesus walked, he made every moment count. Every interaction count. When I was little, I don't remember this because I was only a year or so old, but my parents have told me that I was in a commercial when I was learning to walk. In fact, they're so proud of it, they would tell everybody about, oh, did you know that Kurt was in a commercial when he was, did you know, have you met Kurt? Yeah, he was in a commercial when he was a baby. I think the first time I brought my wife home, oh, nice to meet you. Did you know Kurt was in a commercial? They probably didn't even say nice to meet you. They just probably led with, Kurt was in a commercial. Now, I've never seen it, but apparently the commercial was this, like a public service. This moment of learning is brought to you by the people of General Electric or something. And it was a picture, a video of a set of hands releasing little Kurt. And I waddled across, and then there was another set of hands that caught me. And that was the commercial. This moment of learning is brought to you by the people at. Now, I've never seen the commercial. I did some digging through my parents' old collectibles. And believe it or not, I found a picture, a still picture from the day they shot the video. Here it is. Now, here's what's interesting. All those years ago, I was learning to walk. I have a confession to make tonight. 59 years old, I'm still learning to walk. I'm learning to walk the way Jesus walked. I'm learning to walk in such a way that when people cross paths with Kurt, their lives are different. I'm learning to walk in such a way that is intentional, that conversations matter, that people leave an encounter with Kurt a little bit different because of it. I'm learning to walk in such a way that maybe, just maybe, every now and then, like what happened over and over and over again for Jesus, but what if just every now and then I interacted with somebody in such a way that their life was changed in a way that completely changed the trajectory of their life? I'm still learning to walk. My hunch is you probably are as well. Well, today I'm going to take a few moments and I'm going to give us some steps that will help us learn to walk. Now, we've only got about 30 minutes together. Activate our courses we offer here at Saddleback that are much longer, and every Activate class is a deeper look at what it takes to learn to walk like Jesus. So if you've never gone to Activate, I really do encourage you to do that at the next possible opportunity. Now, learning to walk on the surface feels pretty easy, right? It's just one step after another. You put one foot in front of the next and you learn to walk, and yet it's so hard. It's so hard. But tonight we're going to talk about how do we learn to walk like Jesus walked. So if we want to learn to walk, there's 3 simple steps. You might want to write these down. Step number 1 is simply this, is if you want to learn to walk, you need to pray for opportunities. Pray for opportunities. What I've discovered is there are really a couple prayers that we can pray. One is what I would say the most popular prayer in the world. And the most popular prayer in the world is this prayer: God bless me. God bless me. I pray that prayer all the time. I pray it every morning. I pray it numerous times during the day. I pray it at night. God bless me today. Bless my marriage, bless my wife, bless my kids, bless my grandkids, bless my job, bless my presentation, bless my this. I mean, basically, all day, every day, I'm saying, God, just make life awesome for Kurt. Just like I deserve awesome things. God, would you just bless everything about me? That's a pretty popular prayer. My hunch is you pray that prayer yourself. And there's really nothing wrong with that prayer. God wants to bless us. But there is a different prayer. And it's only one word different. It's a 3-word prayer. I actually think it's the most dangerous prayer you could ever pray. Instead of God bless me, what if you pray, God use me? God use me. Here's why that prayer is so dangerous. I promise you, if you say, God, use me, he will answer in the affirmative every single time. God, would you use me? Yes. God, today, will you use me? Yes. That's why it's a dangerous prayer, because God's going to hear that prayer and he's going to say, okay, you got it. I'll use you. Can you imagine how the cities and the communities around our campuses here in Southern California, all around the globe, could you imagine the difference we could make as a church if we became a church full of men and women who every day, instead of just saying, God bless me, we actually said, God, today, would you use me? Would you use me in the lives of the people that you put in my path? So easy. And yet it's really hard, isn't it? Learning to walk is tough. But if we want to learn to walk like Jesus did, the first thing we need to do is pray, God, use me. Now, if you're new to church, maybe you're not a Jesus follower, and maybe there have been times where you've thought to yourself, man, those Christians, kind of weird. Christians are weird. My answer to that would be, I hope so. I hope we are. You see, I'm giving you, if you're not a Jesus follower, I'm giving you a little bit of insider info today. You see, part of being a Jesus follower is actually walking through life, trying to do it the way Jesus did it. And we should be kind of weird in the way we treat outsiders. We should be kind of weird in the way we treat the people who are looked down upon. We should be kind of weird in the conversations that we have. And so for those of you who are new to faith or you're not a Christian yourself, I'm giving you permission to judge us, to judge the people in your life who claim to be followers of Jesus, to see if we walk the talk. We talk it, but learning to walk, man, learning to walk can be a challenge, can it? But if we want to learn to walk, we pray for opportunities. The second step in learning to walk is simply this: pay attention. Pay attention. A minute ago, I read sort of an overview of the ministry of Jesus. I want to take a second and zoom in, take an up-close look at one particular interaction that Jesus had, because in this interaction, we actually see Jesus paying attention, and we actually see him modeling step 3 that we're going to talk about in a minute as well. It says this in the Gospel of Luke in chapter 19, verses 1 through 7. So remember earlier we just kind of took a flyover in that passage. Now we're zooming in. It says this: Jesus entered Jericho and made his way through the town. There was a man named there Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector in the region, and he had become very rich. He tried to get a look at Jesus, but he was too short to see over the crowd. I feel your pain, buddy. I feel your pain. So he ran ahead, and he climbed a sycamore fig tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to pass that way. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus, called him by name. Zacchaeus, he said, quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today. Zacchaeus quickly climbed down, took Jesus to his house in great excitement and joy. But the people were displeased. He has gone to be the guest of a notorious sinner, they grumbled. This is a fascinating peek into the way Jesus walked through life. A buddy of mine knew that I was going to teach on this topic this weekend, and so he sent me a book recommendation. I have not even had time to read the book, but I'm fascinated by the title. The title is 3 Mile an Hour God. 3 Mile an Hour God. You see, this moment in Jesus' life, he was at the peak of his popularity. He's at the very peak. He's towards the very end of his 3 years worth of public ministry. He's walking through Jericho on his way to Jerusalem. In just a few days, he's going to be greeted like royalty. Palm Sunday, as we've come to call that event, where he was so popular, when he walked into town, they laid palm branches down because they didn't want his feet touching the dirt. So Jesus is at the very peak of his popularity. There's crowds following him. They're probably yelling at him, trying to get his attention. They've heard of his miracles. They've heard of the way he changes lives. His disciples are probably trying to keep him moving forward. Hey, Jesus, we got to get to Jerusalem. In Jesus' mind, he knows what's coming. He knows what awaits him in a few days. There's a lot going on in this scene. And in the midst of all that, he's paying attention, and he notices Zacchaeus in a tree. And Zacchaeus has this encounter with Jesus, and his life is never the same. It's never the same. You see, if we want to learn to walk, we've got to be willing to pay attention. Now, sometimes bad things happen when we don't pay attention. A few years ago, I was walking with a buddy down in San Diego, and we were just walking and talking and having a good time, and all of a sudden, I stepped on something, and my foot slipped, and I almost fell straight back on my back on the sidewalk. I mean, I really whoa. And I what in the world did I step on? And I turned around, and no joke, I had slipped on a banana peel. I kid you not. I know you think that's not true. It is true. Here's a picture. I took a picture of it. There's the banana. There's a skid mark. That's like the slip mark from the banana. How does that happen? How do you grow up watching cartoons of people slipping and it actually is a real thing? I can't understand. So bad things when we don't pay attention. But man, when we pay attention, good things can happen. Good things can happen. As you walk through life, paying attention, God's going to bring people into your path. And I know it's hard to pay attention. Let me give you just 3 quick tips. They'll help. Slow down, eyes up, ears open. Slow down, eyes up, ears open. That's hard for us, isn't it? It's hard for us. We live in a fast-paced world. I like it. I like the world we live in. I like moving fast. But if I want to walk like Jesus, if I want to try to follow the example of a 3 mile an hour God, I've got to be willing to slow down a little bit, to keep my eyes up, out of my phone, out of my own head. Listen up, keep my ears open. What are the conversations around me? Because if we're willing to pay attention, lives can be changed. I'm a follower of Jesus because when I was a teenager, somebody was paying attention when God put me in his path. I grew up in a Christian home, but I wanted nothing to do with Jesus. When I was in 8th grade, my mom and dad said, hey, Kurt, and now in hindsight, I don't know if it's the best parenting or not, but it's the direction they took. They said, Kurt, you're in 8th grade, you're a young man, debatable at that point, but you're a young man. You can decide if you want to go to church or not. We're not going to force you to go to church. You have to decide if you want to follow Jesus or not, so it's up to you. And like a lot of 8th grade boys, I think probably would at the time, I said, well, if you're giving me a choice, I choose not to go to church. I'm gonna opt out. And I didn't go back to church until I was a junior in high school, so about a 4-year window. When I look back at my life, the vast majority of my pain, the vast majority of my regret, the scars I have, the vast majority of it happened in that window from 8th grade until I went back to church. And I went back to church under pretty unlikely circumstances. My buddy went to the big youth group in town, and they were going to summer camp. And summer camp for this church was at the beach down at Santa Onofre State Park. They have a group camp there. And he said, hey, Kurt, I know you like to surf, you're learning to surf. Why don't you come to summer camp with us? That's all we do at this camp. Their whole camp was wake up in the morning, walk down the beach, down the bluff, surf, come back, go to bed, have a little Bible study, rinse and repeat for like 7 days in a row. And he said, I think you'll like it. And I said, yeah, I'm in. So I signed up, and about 2 days before the start of camp, my friend called me and said, hey, I decided not to go. I've never been to this youth group. I had not been back to church since 8th grade when my parents said you don't have to go. But I thought, well, man, I think I'm gonna go by myself. So I got on this bus full of people I don't know, sat in a seat. Most people didn't say hi. I don't remember having any conversations. We got to the beach, and the youth pastor said, okay, go have fun. That was back in the day when the youth group wasn't organized like it is today. Like, it was my youth pastor, hey, go have fun. I hope I see you back at the campfire later on the night, kind of thing. And so we just ran down to the beach, and to my insecurity of not knowing anybody, I just thought, well, it's gonna be safer if it'll be less embarrassing. I'll just paddle out by myself and surf. And so I did. And I was out there all by myself, and I caught the eye of this guy named Chris, and Chris paddles over and says, hey, are you with us? And I said, I don't know. I don't know if I'm with you. Who's us? He said, well, are you with the group that's here camping from the youth group? I said, I am. He goes, oh man, my name's Chris. I'm part of the youth group. Why don't we surf together, and then we can hang out this week. I'll introduce you to people, and I think you'll have a good time. I said, oh, okay, and so we hung out. He introduced me around. Turns out he's like the most popular guy in the whole youth group. He knows everybody. There's 100 kids at camp. He knows everybody by name. They all know him. And over the course of that week, after every campfire, Chris would pull me aside and say, hey, do you have any questions? Does that make sense? And I had questions and stuff didn't make sense. I had some background because of growing up in a Christian home. And I didn't become a Jesus follower at camp. But at the end of the week, he said, hey, Kurt, if you liked this, we do this, it's not at the beach, but we do this kind of stuff every single Wednesday night at our church. You can come. And so I started going, and in about a month's time, I thought, man, I want more of this. And I gave my life to Jesus because this teenager paid attention when God put me in his path. You see, what might happen if you and what might happen if Saddleback Church becomes a church where even in this hustle and bustle world that we live in, where we're committed to the grind, but what if we walk through life? What if we learn to walk in such a way that we simply pray for opportunities and we begin to pay attention to the people that God puts in our path? So if you want to learn to walk, pray for opportunities, pay attention. And then the third step is put in the effort. Put in the effort. Now, it's important to pray for opportunities. It's important to pay attention, but neither of those really require much effort on our part, do they? Praying's easy. Pray, God, use me today. That's effortless. Paying attention is effortless, as long as I'm willing to slow down, a little bit. But putting in the effort, oh man, that one hurts a little bit. I want to show you a bumper sticker that I'm super proud of on my truck. Every time I see it, I'm just, Kurt, you're such a great guy. Just always hoping, You know, Kurt, you're just hoping for everybody. People will pull up next to me and they'll like, hey, roll down your window. What do you want? Roll down my window. That's a great bumper sticker, dude. Thanks so much for making the world a better place. I'll be in a restaurant, so hey, did you just get out of that brown truck? Was that you? Yeah. Good for you. I love that bumper sticker. I really do hope something good happens for everybody that sees my bumper sticker. You know what my bumper sticker doesn't say? I'll help something good happen to you today. That would require some effort, wouldn't it? You see, as we learn to walk, there's hoping for people, and there's actually putting in the effort and helping people's lives be better, helping them come to an understanding of Jesus, helping them think through why is it that they're hurt, helping them navigate life. You got to put in some effort. That's what Jesus did with Zacchaeus. You see, it would have been really easy for Jesus to pay attention and see Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus is up in the tree. He's a tax collector. People hated Zacchaeus. Tax collectors were cheats. Some Bible scholars have opined that not only was Zacchaeus in the tree because he was short, but he was in the tree because it kind of provided like some space between him and the people who he ripped off all the time. And it would have been really easy for Jesus to be walking by. He's busy. He's on his way to Jerusalem, a lot on his mind. He could have easily been paying attention. Oh, there's Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus, quit being such a jerk to people. I got to go. Hope you do better, Zacchaeus. I hope something good happens to you today, Zacchaeus. But he put in the effort. You see, he told his disciples, hey, we're going to walk off route for a little bit. We're going to go to Zacchaeus' house. We're going to have a meal. We're going to have a conversation. It's going to slow us down. It's going to mess up our schedule. Jesus had to put in some effort so that he could have a meaningful conversation with Zacchaeus. And Zacchaeus said yes to Jesus, and his life was changed. My life changed in the way that I'm a follower of Jesus because somebody paid attention. I am a pastor because somebody put in the effort. When I was in college, I'm not an academic. So for me, my strategy in college was, what's the shortest, easiest route from where I am now to the diploma? That's it. I just want the shortest, easiest route from where I am now to the diploma. Parents, if you're sitting next to a teenager, I'm sorry, I just said that. But that was my strategy. And along the way, I was just taking these classes I could, and I noticed that there was a class, I was going to a Christian school, and there was a class entitled Camp Leadership. An entire semester dedicated to helping you learn how to lead a camp. Section 1. The s'more, that kind of thing. Like, how easy, what in the world? I'm in, sign me up for camp leadership. So I signed up, and a couple of weeks into the course, I'm walking, literally there's like this little path in our school, and I'm walking the path and come in the exact opposite direction as our professor, Wayne Tesh. God put me in his path. And Wayne says, Kurt, I've been thinking about you. And now he could have stopped there. I've just been thinking that good things happen. Go you. But he put in some effort. He said, hey, I've been thinking about you. I know your church, and your church has a nice bus, and your church has a gymnasium. This was the same church that I had went to beach camp with. And he said, you guys could do the same camp that my church does every summer. He said, every summer we do a 10-week day camp, but instead of for little kids, it's a 10-week day camp for junior hires. He said, you could do that. And I thought to myself, no, I can't. You think I'm gonna spend my summer 10 weeks with junior hires running a camp? He said, Kurt, you could do this. I know your pastor, he'd allow it. It would be amazing. You actually put into practice what we're teaching. And then my mind went, boom, I've got an idea. And I said, you're right. You're giving me an opportunity to do what you're teaching us to do, right? He said, yeah. I said, so you want me at the end of the semester, when everybody else is doing their thing all summer, you want me leading 10 weeks of camp like you're teaching us in camp leadership? He said, yeah. I said, sounds awesome. Let's make a deal. I will lead that camp if I get permission from my pastor. I'll lead the camp, and you give me an A in the class. He said, what do you mean? I said, here's the deal. You're asking me to run a camp for 10 weeks. That deserves an A. Nobody else they're not going to do that. He thought, he said, you're probably right. I said, okay, here's the deal. Professor Tesh, we're going to shake hands. On that path, at my college, we shook hands. And I said, here's the deal. I'll go to class because I want to learn. I'm not going to take a test. I'm not going to write a paper. I'm not going to do some silly group project. Because all of that is just hoping that some of us do what I'm going to do for 10 weeks. He said, I get it. We shook hands. I got an A in the class. Now, years later, that college got into all kinds of trouble. They almost lost their credentials. And my hunch is maybe there was too many professors doing back alley deals for grades. You know, you can't be like bargaining for grades and keep your credentials. I did that. I spent 10 weeks. You know who I recruited to lead it with me? My friend Chris, who paddled over to me when I was a junior in high school. One of my best friends to this day. I fell in love with ministry. I felt called to ministry. I get nervous sharing that story because a lot of pastors have these like powerful, almost Moses burning bush calls to ministry. I was in my prayer closet and the angel of the Lord shone, and that's how I knew I was going to be a pastor. Kurt, how did you know? Well, you know, I bargained for an A in class, and you know, I didn't really do ministry. I just kind of did it for a grade, and over time I kind of liked it, and here I am. Here I am. My friend Chris, still a pastor down in San Diego. He's a pastor. You see, when you pray for opportunities, when you pay attention, and when you put in the effort, my professor, it put some extra effort on him. He had to talk to his colleagues. I'm sure he got permission somewhere along the line. He called me separately. We had separate meetings because I had to plan the camp ahead of time, and he would meet with me. Okay, what are you going to do for week one? What about this? What about that? During the summer, he would call and check in. How's it going? It would have been so easy for him just to say, Kurt, I hope you have a great semester. Thanks for being in my class. Nice to meet you. But when you pay attention and when you put in the effort, lives are changed. You see, as you walk, you are going to interact with people. My hope for you is that, like Jesus, now we're not going to be nearly as good as Jesus was at this. I mean, Jesus never wasted a moment. He never missed an opportunity. We're learning to walk today. And when you learn to walk, you wobble, you fall down, people pick you up, they cheer you on. What if we collectively said, we're going to learn to walk, and we're going to cheer each other on, and we're going to wobble, we're going to miss opportunities, we're going to fall, but we're going to get back up, because eventually, if we commit to learning to walk, lives will be changed. The trajectory of somebody's life could be different. Please hear me. The trajectory of someone's life could be different because you prayed for an opportunity. You paid attention and you put in the effort to the people that God put in your path. Now, if you want to start practicing, heading into Easter is a great time to practice. Because I promise you, between now and Easter, God is going to put lots and lots and lots of people in your path. And maybe the first easy baby step is just to simply invite them to an Easter service. That's why we've got the Easter invite cards. Take as many as you want. Take one, take 50. And just ask God, between now and Easter, when you put people in my path, would you help me put in the effort to give them an invite? It's a simple way to start practicing. What if? What might happen if we prayed for opportunities, we paid attention, we put in the effort to the people that God put on our path? I think the world could be an incredibly different place. In fact, that's the question I have for you this week. You might want to just jot it down as we head out. This week, who has God placed in my path? As I close, I'm going to ask you to do something a little bit different today. This might feel a little bit weird, but just go with it. I want you to bow your heads, but I want you to keep your eyes open. And I want you to look at your feet. And I'm going to kind of pray for you and your feet today, that as you walk through life, that to the best of your ability, there would be no wasted interactions. That you would pray for opportunities, you would pay attention, and that when the opportunity arises, that you would put in the effort to maybe change the trajectory of the course of someone's life. Jesus, today we just thank you for your goodness. We thank you for your blessings. And Father, we thank you for this gift of life. And Father, I pray that as we walk and as Easter approaches, but Jesus, not just heading into Easter, every single day of our life, that Jesus, we would get better and better at walking like you in such a way that there's no wasted interactions, in such a way that because you put people in our path, their lives are different. We pray these things in your name. Amen.